we compare against our peers in companies, and I'm not really a big person of hierarchy and structure, kind of moving away from that. But we have this, we compare everything and anything, and I think that starts, when you're in a company. Okay, you're always rated against other people, how you're paid and how you're remunerated and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I think that, and the thing is, even if you're trying to be individual and trying to think about yourselves, often society kind of pushes those things. You fall into school, you fall into groups, you're compared, okay, you're graded, etc. And we have that all the time in so many different ways. And I think it's hard to kind of push away from that and find yourself and find that individualism in who you are, because we are all unique and we don't
Mhm.
always fit in that system. And I often find we find like a resistance because we're trying to be squeezed into things.
It's happening. It is not bad luck. It's a pattern. So today we're talking about patterns, not playbooks. We're looking at how we can build a business that actually fits around you. And just before this episode, Colin and I were actually talking about that because Colin has a podcast that he usually puts together, and he just loves how it runs because it's all around what he enjoys doing and the people that he enjoys talking to. So I think he's the perfect person for us to speak to today in my kitchen. And so if the same problems keep showing up, Colin is here to tell us how to find and look for those patterns. Hello, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Yvonne Bilmasamba. I'm the CEO of Lockeries, and every Thursday we usually sit around the most natural room in my house, my kitchen. Today, though, I'm in Milton Keynes at a conference, so maybe quite not my kitchen, but still the same vibe, still relaxed, and we're still here talking about things that matter to you. And to get us started, I would love for us to say hello to Colin. Colin, please do say hello to everybody that is listening and tell us a little bit about your journey and who Colin Parsons is. Welcome to my kitchen.
Thank you, Yvonne. I'm pleased to be in your kitchen. Yeah, thank you. Very kind introduction. So, a little bit about myself. Come from the corporate world. I created LinkedIn Lives conversations that I'm doing. I do 3 of these now a week, and it's about conversations with people, genuine conversations, no buying, no selling, just understanding what's going on for people. I have guests that are experts in their field, guests that are exploring new ways of doing things or thinking differently, and just really understanding people at a deeper level and bringing them out and showcasing them. Not always exactly what they do, but who they are and maybe why they do it and how they do things. And yeah, I've been doing that for the last 8 months, and it seems to be taking off. So yeah, there's a lot more in the backstory, but I don't know that we've got time for all of that. But I think that's probably a good place to give some context to your audience.
I know, and 8 months, 8 months is quite a good period of time to talk to people and to start identifying patterns, I would say. Um, or maybe it's not. What do you think, Colin?
Yeah, I think with most things you have to, we try to look too short term in terms of we're looking for patterns that happen, immediately in front of us. And I think we often need to spread our time horizon. So if we're looking about patterns about ourselves, we can't just look about the last week. We should maybe look a bit further back into our background. Because the further you go out, the more data you have, and you have this ability to zoom out and see things from a different perspective. So if I'm just thinking about this week and you start to go, okay, this has been a bad week. I've been, not eating well, not sleeping well, etc. But if you zoom out and you go, well, over the last month, how did I do? And you go, oh, this week is just part of this month. And how did I do for the other 3 weeks? Oh, I did great. I was really productive. I've done loads of things. And for me, often a lot of my conversations are about zooming out and just not being too close into the detail, and you step out of it a little bit, and you can see that wider data set or view or perspective, and then you get to see what patterns are really there. And when you're really into the details, you can't see it. So I think, yeah, give yourself enough time. Even if you look about history and anything like that, patterns change over the duration that you're actually looking at it.
And Colin, that's a powerful statement. Before we came live, there's something you say that I found quite intriguing, and that was I've had to kind of just slow myself down today, and
Mm.
just so that things don't kind of take over, and I take some few minutes to reset myself, because if I'm not careful, things will kind of, I'm saying it in my own language. You said it so much better, so much with a lot more grace than that. And I'm thinking about a lot of the people that will be listening to this. A lot of them run businesses, a lot of them run schools, a lot of them run businesses that sell into schools. Many of them are parents. They live in community, and they might be finding themselves in a kind of similar way where maybe things have kind of taken over a little bit. Perhaps they have the wrong clients, or their calendar is quite crowded. They have money stress worries. They have that feeling where they can't quite identify those patterns because it's never going to stop long enough to be able to do that. Is that
Yeah.
something that you have come across? Is that something that could happen?
Yeah, I think we all suffer from it. I think we live in a world of consuming and of doing. We always think that we're not enough. We're not the best parent. We're not the best daughter or son or brother or employee or employer or leader. Fill in the blanks. And what we tend to do is just keep adding to that. So I heard ages ago that we keep adding to the glass until it flows over, but the reality is most of the time it's already overflowing, and we keep adding. And it's not about adding more; it's about subtracting. And I think that's easy to say. When you're not, when you're busy and you're doing all these things, and you're trying to probably please everybody or do a million things, and trying to carve out that moment to reflect and like I said, zoom out and just sort of say, oh, what's actually going on. And it you have to have some awareness, some sort of just moment, to sort of pause and go, do I really need to do this? Because we fill up that cup quite easily with things that we deem as important or very and that need to get done. And the reality is they don't. But we don't question that. We kind of get caught into it. Again, if I look at just today, okay, do I need to do all of these things? No, they can spill over tomorrow. There is probably a better time. I can show up differently, but we're just trying to squeeze our way into the day and drain as much out of it as possible. And that's, I think when you ever look at your calendar and you go, okay, I've got so much, and it's sometimes it just takes a perspective to sort of go, oh, okay, and you can feel that there's an urgency to run from one thing to another. I'm just thinking of being a parent. You kind of go, but you can easily miss the important thing. Maybe spending a moment connecting with your child, because
Mm-hmm.
yes, you want to take them to clubs, you want to do this and that, make sure that they're okay and they're fed and etc. But the connecting with your child and being present with them gives them something and gives you something. And I know that's not possible every minute of every day, but sometimes we get involved in the busy work, and it's easily done. Social media will always tell us, oh, you'll see someone being an extraordinary parent or whatever, and you set your own expectations against what you see there. And it's actually about looking inwards and going, okay, what's important for me, what's important for my family, my values. And if you can create that reflective moment just to go, oh, okay. And if you're on a train and you're going like 100 miles an hour, it's very difficult to stop that train. But try and slow it down a little, try and go half speed or something, or just give yourself a break, however you can best do that, and just sort of look inwards and see actually what's going on, and then go from there.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Um, Colin, there's something you've said there that's really important. Yes, you have a lot of things that need doing, but do they all need doing right now?
Yeah.
That's really powerful. I mean, today one of the things that we are going to talk about is identifying those loops, because it's like sometimes we're just running a loop. It's on social media. I want to be this. I want to. We become human doings, and we forget
Yes.
how to just be. And so, one of the things I think, and our viewers are going to really enjoy is breaking. How to identify those loops and then how to break that, so that then right at the end we're going to give them just one big change. Try this, and then that will give you that opportunity to do that. So, if you were to walk us through, you've given some really powerful examples, with yourself, this is something. With your children, this is something. But if you were to walk us through the route, because something you said was a lot of the times we feel we're just not enough.
Mm.
Where does that come from? That feeling of I'm not enough.
I I mean, I think it comes from multiple different places. From our childhood, from school, from culture, society, from social media, and you know, we all have this voice in our head, and some people are aware of it, some people aren't even aware of it. But it's basically that voice that's sort of driving a lot of things, and sometimes it's a whisper, sometimes it's a shout. But because it's often our voice, and sometimes it can be the voice of our parents, saying you should work hard or you should do this, etc. But it sounds like it's our voice in our head. Um, we kind of just and because it's always been there, we kind of just accept it. And I think looking at you know what that voice is saying for me it was really powerful, because I am my worst critic. I beat myself up constantly. I'm very unkind in terms of the language. If something doesn't go well, and I think if you can pay attention just even for a moment to see what actually that voice is saying, and just see, well, how is it talking to you? Because I've heard it said before, listen to the voice and how it's talking to you. Would you talk to your best friend in the same way? And I would
Or
suggest,
would you talk to a child
yeah, exactly,
in the same way?
exactly.
Like, I
Yeah,
mean, a baby, like a really little child who's powerless,
yeah.
or a puppy.
Yeah, and if you can, it's a very awakening moment to go, wow, I
Mm.
am really hard on myself,
Yeah.
because that you never get away from that. I don't know if it what happens when you sleep. Probably the dreams are, reflecting some of that as well. But constantly you're with that voice, and it's driving so much. And I think it drives our behaviors, our beliefs, and those beliefs can lead to negative things. So, like, I'm not enough, I need to be better, etc. And for
Mm.
me, I think if people were a bit more kinder to themselves, we talk
Yeah.
about kindness to other people, and
Mm.
that might see it. And people I've spoken to, it seems that, yeah, people can be kind to others, but actually, if you even try to scratch the surface of the voice of in their head, you realize they're being very unkind to themselves. And
Mm.
if they can just see what's going on, and don't beat yourself up, because it can also be one of those things that you beat yourself up over
Yeah.
beating yourself
One
up.
extra thing.
Yeah, and but be curious, be have fun with it, see what's going on. Don't take it as too judgmental, but just have a reflective. And sometimes it helps to write it down, because you're busy again, you're doing a load of things. So something I quite like is I've got I bought loads of little pads and brightly coloured pens, just to match your hair today,
Oh,
and
I love it. Yeah.
yeah, and it
And I
just
love the
it's
contrast between the two as well.
yeah,
The
exactly.
black
Well,
notebook and the orange
yeah,
font.
and it's specifically that, and just make it something enjoyable, just to write something down, because something happens and then our mind switches to something else. And if you can just note that down or write it down and come back to it later, again, there's no perfect way of doing it. Just,
Mhm.
there's loads of stuff you could just record a voice note or whatever works for you, technology, manual, anything, just to
Yeah.
get an insight to what sort of, I sort of say script is running your life, because that script is basically
Mm.
the pattern.
Yeah, that pattern, that loop. So would it be fair to say then, Colin, that when we're talking about patterns, what we're looking to do is identify that loop in various situations?
Yes, and I found this in my own life. So I actually went to therapy. So I moved from the UK to Luxembourg about 11 years ago, and
Oh,
I went to at the time it was a big shift. Moved away from my family, friends, routine, everything that I
mm,
thought made me me and made me secure,
yes.
and moved here and I started a job, wasn't quite working out, and I felt very insecure. And at the time, my girlfriend said to me, "Oh, you're quite aggressive in the way that I was talking," and I'm
Mm,
not really an aggressive person, so it stood out as strange behaviour. And she said, "Oh, maybe you should go and talk to someone," and so
mm,
I did, and I went to a therapist, and we did a lot of work and introspection, and that was really great. But what I realized was there was patterns in my behavior, triggers. So we talk
mm,
about triggers, something can trigger you, like it's the thing that happens to make you react a certain way.
yeah.
And what I realized was, again, when I looked back, I saw that when insecurities came, and
Mm,
those insecurities can happen in work, they can happen in personal life, they
yeah.
can happen in between. And
Yeah.
so oftentimes we try to like, put things in boxes and go, well, that's my work life, that's my
Yes.
private life.
Yeah.
And we are the same person, even if we go to work with maybe a sense of
A different
armor or
mouse.
yeah, exactly. But underneath, we are the same person, but we just triggered a maybe slightly different way. And I realized that, you know, there was a lot of behavior. There's a lot behind the scenes that actually trigger these things that
Yeah.
you wouldn't, just looking on the surface, you might not see. So
Mm,
again, a lot of that's about zooming out. Sometimes it's easier when you go and see someone else because they can help you in a kind
definitely.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's almost what I'm hearing. It's almost like allowing. It's what we allow behind the thing that is happening. So something is happening, and then maybe because we're just in this loop, right? So it could be something that's happening on a practical level, and we're in this loop, and we just keep doing it because I'm just doing it, or it could be happening and it's on a emotional level, and so we react in a certain way because we're not giving ourselves permission to zoom out, to pause, and therefore be able to reflect.
yeah.
So breaking that trigger, is that is that
Yeah, it's perfectly done. Yeah, it's I think the biggest thing for me is that we react very quickly and almost like a microsecond when we're triggered by something, and you can feel it almost, well, certainly the way it happens for me, it almost comes from my gut or from my body, and it's just like out, and you go, oh, like
or
especially
both?
if,
Yeah.
yeah, I found myself shouting at my kids a little while ago, and it seemed quite common that I was doing it. And I was like, oh, what's that? And and I didn't like it. You know, I've tried to build a very strong relationship with my kids, and yet here I was shouting them about things that weren't actually that important. And it was just, and I realized what was happening was that I had so when I was starting my business, I just got divorced. There was a whole load of things made unemployed. There was a whole load of thoughts. So the way I describe it, and I don't know if it works for anyone else, but I had this thought. I was almost going into the back of my brain. And I was thinking about myself and going, "Oh, how am I going to do that? How am I going to find the money, etc." And
Yeah.
then the kids were in front of me, maybe on the sofa, and then basically my brain went from deep thinking in the back of my brain, beating myself up, to shooting to look at what was in front of me, and it was the kids. And then maybe they dropped like a biscuit or something on the sofa, and then I immediately like couldn't. I was in that mode of beating myself up, and I was shouting at the kids, and it was like, and I didn't like the way that I was doing that. Few things that I realized: one, I was super tired. Two, I didn't know what was running the show. What
Mm-hmm.
I, I can only tell you now that that thought was running from the back of my brain to the front.
Yeah.
And then so I've always, well, for about 10 years tried to do meditation. And meditation is a nice way for me, again,
yeah,
no
yeah,
advice here, people find their own way of
yeah.
understanding what's going on and creating that pause. If it's about
Yes,
that
slowing down.
microsecond,
Yes,
exactly, and then
yeah,
going,
yeah,
oh, what's actually going on? Not reacting to something, but
yeah.
just go, oh, okay, and
Oh,
then
yeah, yeah. So a lot of so I'm not religious, but I am spiritual in my approach to things, and there's a lot of similarity in a lot of different ways of looking within, which is what I think spirituality is, giving us an opportunity to take a pause and look within that follow a similar pattern. So meditation, for example, Eastern. In Christianity, there's this example of be still. In fact, there's, I got, when I was younger, we went a lot to Catholic church. And then when I went to high school, I converted and went to Christian church. A lot of Christians will kind of understand that, the born again movement. And there was always this thing called be still. Yeah, be still. And there's prayer. And in Islam, there's this, like 5 times a day, stop and pause and pray. So it can be an accident, that all these things, no matter how varied we believe and what our different beliefs are, there's that element of pause at some point every day. Like every single religion, every single spiritual practice says daily, almost like the food we eat. Take a pause, and from that pause, start from there. And I'm hearing you saying that as well. I was going through this tough time. Based off of that, I wasn't able to slow down. And then, something happened. Like I've got all this, like, it's really it's almost like a record running, right? I've got this record, it's just running because that monkey brain is just going. And of course, it's now repeating that message, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, and look, this has happened, I'm not good enough. And then this other thing has happened, I'm definitely not good. And then I'm definitely not good enough. And then, just to almost force us to pause, which I believe kids do so well, right? They do something. And that is a forced pause. and of course, it's kind of like it opens the floodgates, doesn't it? The reaction. No, I love that. And would you be able to give us an example, Colin, in maybe business where somebody could find this happening? Or maybe if someone is working in a community or in a school where they could find themselves in this pattern where something is happening and then you have this reaction, and maybe they might have that aha moment. Oh, I see myself in that.
yeah, I think the comparison part is a big thing. We tend to compare often, and that exists in everything. We compare against our peers in companies, and I'm not really a big person of hierarchy and structure, kind of moving away from that. But we have this, we compare everything and anything, and I think that starts, when you're in a company. Okay, you're always rated against other people, how you're paid and how you're remunerated and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I think that, and the thing is, even if you're trying to be individual and trying to think about yourselves, often society kind of pushes those things. You fall into school, you fall into groups, you're compared, okay, you're graded, etc. And we have that all the time in so many different ways. And I think it's hard to kind of push away from that and find yourself and find that individualism in who you are, because we are all unique and we don't always fit in that system. And I often find we find like a resistance because we're trying to be squeezed into things. And then when you try to compare, I think when you compare yourself to other people, then that, oh, I'm not good enough pops up quite a lot. And not just from yourself, it's almost reinforced by other people. Say you've been put in a job that actually you didn't want to do, but for whatever circumstances you're in,
You're in,
and then you're almost told, well, you're not good enough, you need to improve this. And we love you've got to improve your weaknesses, and you go,
Mhm.
oh, hang on, like, and so we're
Yeah,
already
yeah, yeah.
told to sort of beat ourselves up that we're not good enough.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
it's kind of pushing even further into that limit, but just being able to take a moment and go, okay. And I've seen this in quite a lot of people. I feel that there are so many more successful people out there just on the cusp of being able to be successful, but they're holding themselves back through this self-belief, or I'm not good enough, etc. And almost that belief becomes their reality. And because they go, oh, and then they'll look for evidence that they're not good enough or there's someone better. And I think that shows up more than we would care to admit.
yeah. Thank you so much for that, Colin. That it puts it so much into perspective when when we look at it that way. You know, it makes so much sense as well, right? So if you, for example, grow up in a family, you could, and sometimes parents, I think we might do this in subconscious ways, where you have more than one child. So maybe somebody has grown up all their life and this pattern is played out, even in the most loving,
Mm,
environment where, oh, one is a girl, one is a boy. Straight away, that kind of could, for especially for a sensitive child, it could already produce a comparison, right?
mm,
If I was only my sister, right, I might be treated
yes.
this way. So it's already the monkey brain is already started when we're really really young. And I never thought about it that way. So then you go into a job that maybe you had all your life. um, Somebody saying if you did that job you're probably successful, or you've seen it, right? You've maybe seen, a lot of us, we tend to do what we've seen our parents do.
Yes.
So maybe your dad was a doctor, and so you end up as a doctor, never really questioning. It's just, I admired dad, and he did well, and wanted to please him, whatever, right? And without, like, even almost unwittingly, we've already entered that comparison, and then something happens, right? We get laid off, or just, and life will always happen. The one thing in
Hmm.
life that's a given is we will have problems. Suffering is a different thing altogether, but that's a given. Problems is how we grow in life, so it has to happen. And now we have the problem, but this thing has been running, at the back. And now, it's right in front of us, in the place where maybe I was a really good student and now I'm a really good doctor, and all of a sudden I'm not. So it's almost a part of your identity.
Yes. Yeah,
it,
exactly.
it just becomes so true for you. Wow, yeah, thank you for that. It makes it so. I mean, I'm at a conference in Milton Keynes, and in the room there are head teachers and heads of multi academy trusts, and they're all talking, about growing bigger and getting, because when you grow bigger, you're able to compete better. And one of the head teachers said, well, I'm a head of a small multi academy trust. And the thing I could hear from what he was saying was the fear, right? If we stay small, does that mean we stop being relevant?
Yeah.
Because he asked that question. But I could hear from him asking that question, it was an individualism question. I want us to be individual, and I'm afraid that if we don't get bigger, we're going to stop being individual. But the message that came back from a lot of the people on the panel, you gotta getting bigger. And I'm wondering, is it okay for you to just stay small because you want to choose to stay small? Do you really have to get bigger? And is that another one of those competitions? Is that something, anybody watching who's in an education? I mean, I'm not saying be small or big or whatever, but is that a moment where you, like you just said, Colin, where you pause and ask yourself that deeper question? What does it mean for me to be small, for our school to be small? And why is that relevant for us rather than everyone's getting bigger? Let's go and get bigger because we're going to be more competitive. But that's an outside message.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
sorry,
super.
rambling
No,
on
no, it's
a little bit,
no,
but
no. It's
what
I love the fact that you you saw that and you took that from what he was saying. And we, again, we live in a society where we're always told, you know, bigger, better, grow faster, bigger. And even if you think about the words, and we talked before we actually went live, how important words are. We
Mm,
go, oh, small and then big.
big,
And
yeah.
big feels safe. Big feels,
Mm,
yes, I'm more powerful. I have more control. But small, and it was really strange when I've wanted to start a business for a long time, and um, I had this idolation that okay, yeah, I'd be big, and I would, I want to earn, ridiculous. If I told you the amount, you'd think I was crazy. But how much I
go
want
on,
to
I
earn,
dare
like
you.
a week or a month or whatever,
I dare
and
you.
yeah, okay. I used to think that I was going to earn £1 million a month, and that I
Okay.
wasn't going to stop. That was my starting point.
Yeah. That's not
And
ridiculous, though. There's businesses
well,
doing that.
yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but but they didn't match with what I actually wanted from my life. I wanted
Ah,
freedom. I wanted to spend
yeah.
time with the kids. I don't want to be in charge of loads of people. I don't
Yes.
love power.
Yes. Yeah.
I want freedom to move and to feel flexible and to have an impact.
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
then you actually go, so we take all these signals from everybody else, society, etc., and they're always celebrated. Let's take Apple for example. It's an easy one that people can recognize. Oh, it's one of the biggest companies, tech. It's brilliant. Okay, and because
mhm,
it's so big, we think it's so great.
mhm,
But why? That's maybe their mission, but it's not for us. And we think if we're going to stay small that we're going to be, like you said, irrelevant, or we're going to get crushed. But you can be so excellent at
mm,
what you do by being small. And
mm,
because when, what people forget is that when you grow, everything, a lot of things, like we talk about values, we talk about integrity, ethics, and loads of stuff.
mhm,
When things grow, those things are so hard to keep hold of. But
mm,
the impact that you can have can be so much greater when you're staying small, relevant, and
mhm,
focused on the one thing. And I guess we live in a society where we think that we need to do loads and loads of different things. The
mm,
I've moved faster in my life when I've started doing these lives. I cut out all the noise, all the other stuff, because
mm,
it no longer remained relevant for me. So I didn't have a website, didn't do marketing, didn't do funneling, didn't do anything. I just focused on the thing that I really enjoyed and I was really good at,
mm,
and everything else just disappeared. And suddenly the world opened up. Opportunities started coming. People started coming towards me. I moved faster than I've ever moved in my whole life, with intention, and synchronicities happened. I cannot explain to you, but I used to get caught in this. Oh, okay, you need to do all this, have a fancy website, branding, etc. I need to think about marketing. I think about sponsorships and all this. No, no, no. Focus on the good thing, and the other stuff works itself out as you go.
mm,
And that's very difficult when you're playing in a team where everyone else is these giants, and so it
mm,
can be very difficult to understand what's right for you
mm.
as opposed to what other people think is right for you. And it's those are very different messages.
That's really really important. And one of the things, though, if it's okay for me to kind of challenge this, because
Mm,
it can happen both ways. So it can happen where somebody, is safe in being small, and they never get to experience, their greatness,
yeah.
because it's a safe, it's safe. If I'm small, I know I'm safe. And it can happen the other way, where it grows and it becomes this big amorphous beast, where your values, the thing that is your identity, gets lost. And it's interesting that you bring up Apple, and it will be interesting to compare like different companies. I'd love to do that actually. Maybe our next one should be about that, like compare big and small and see, which ones have lost their identity? How do they lose their identity? Because it would be quite cool to do that. And then even compare schools, big and small, because that was one of the things that they were talking about. There's this really huge federations and multi-academy trusts, and some of them are doing a brilliant job with their kids and their schools. So it'd be interesting to see what is it about them where they've kept their values, because a lot of this is around your map, yeah, the way you see the world, and your blueprint. and how it's able to translate to everybody that becomes part of the organization, where as you grow, you manage, like I love what you say, you don't believe in hierarchy, right? As you grow, there's a way where there is that intention that you mentioned, but the intention is a shared intention. It's so powerful. I believe when we can all move in the same direction in unison, and there's so much growth that we can bring to the world. But developing that takes a special kind of skill.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing from you, it actually comes from you yourself and knowing yourself and knowing, is this the thing for me? And almost being unashamed to admit it to yourself that I actually just like my freedom, the time I spend with my children, not having many people that I have to manage, because that's the thing for me that matters. Those are my values and that's my identity. And you know what? It might change in the future, but I'm actually quite happy with that. And like you said, everything then falls into place because we're being true to ourselves. So
Yeah.
I really like that. So anybody watching this and sitting in the table and saying, I see myself in this, this is something that's eye-opening. What could you say to them about something that they could do today, just one thing that they could do today where they could start seeing, being able to identify those loops and then being able to do something where they maintain those values, that identity, and then it goes
Yeah.
to
I
everything.
think I think I mentioned it already. It's just noting stuff down, and we think that big change has to be this overnight thing. We always want this
Yeah.
hacks, this thing that goes, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to be, Superman, or, I'm going to be this different version of myself. And, I don't think we need to get there. We need to kind of evolve. And, you know, especially if, if you've got family and friends around you, and then all of a sudden you're waking up and trying to be a completely different person, it's going to be a big shock to your own system. You're not going to know where you are, and other people won't recognize you. And yeah, it's fine to change, but I would, I always think that change starts very small. Just find the smallest thing,
Powerful.
and if that's finding the awareness, because and we think that small change won't have an impact, but I don't know if we talk a lot about compounding interest, interest on your savings, etc. You think, oh, it's nothing today, it's nothing tomorrow, but over a very short period of time it actually gets bigger and bigger, and because it's just built on that. And having that awareness about yourself and the patterns that are running in your life, and doing it, and this is for me, this is really important, is doing it from a non-judgment and curiosity perspective, and have fun with it.
Yes.
Because when you start playing and understanding yourself and just being a bit light and go, oh, that's funny, and not taking yourself too seriously, just go, oh, what's that, what am I doing, and just reflective inwards, just do that. Go, oh, that's strange. Oh, why am I doing that? And just have fun with it. And if you can, note it down. If you don't, find a way that works for you, and
Yeah.
just have fun with that. And then just try and tweak it. And the tweaks are those very, very tiny changes. And just go, oh yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'm just giving an example. Okay, it's like sleep is fundamentally important to a lot of us. There is this. This thing about getting up super early, but actually we do need sleep. We do need it to be good in the day, and it depends on your sleep, the way that you sleep. But
Yeah. No, I
you
do
know,
accept that, especially after being up 4 a.m. today.
yeah, exactly. So, but that's the thing. We always go, oh, you just go, oh, I'm just going to be a bit kinder to myself tonight. I'm going to go to bed maybe 10
And
minutes earlier. Again, we always think, oh, I'll go to bed 4 hours earlier. No, just go to bed 10 minutes earlier, another 10 minutes, and
yeah.
then soon enough it's an hour. And then you go, okay, maybe an hour is sufficient. And then you can make those micro changes in your life.
I love that. Make micro changes. I think that's approachable for everybody, isn't it? Making those
Yes.
micro changes. I can remember one of the things, like right now with Lockrise, we've got Lockrise Match. And what we do, we connect anybody selling to schools with schools. So we make it easier for them to find each other. It used to take months, and what we're building is a platform where it literally, the more we add more sellers, more schools, it's just going to, because it's an AI tool, it goes in there, it finds the
Oh,
person for
nice.
you, and then it connects them. But I can remember the early days and the chaos. Because I wanted to like have everything in there. At one point, we had like 40 volunteers. Because I came from Kenya, we were talking for this, and I came in with that belief of, oh my God, it was almost I'm beholden because I came here and the community supported me. And I've not got big enough where I can give back all the money, because I had this dream when I came here, I'd be like really wealthy. I'd go home and like just spray money every time I go home. It's a thing, honestly. It's an
Okay.
African thing. You go home and you just give everybody money, so that was my dream. But then I hadn't got there. I was like, in 5 years, when I learned, yeah, I'm going to have this big, because I'm going where there's lots of money. And I'll come back home. And every time I come back, everyone in the village, I'll be giving them lots of money. So it hadn't happened. But then what I was able to do, I became a teacher. And through that, I was like, I might not have the money, but I have the skill now and I can mentor people. And so I just kept taking people. So at one point, I ended up with 40 volunteers with a startup company that's got no product. But I'm helping people, right? And it was absolute chaos. And it's so I'm recognize myself in so much of what you've said. You've got to know yourself. You've got to know your boundaries. You've got to be gentle with yourself. You don't have to be beholden just because, I'm going to do this, and you don't know where the pattern is running from. I've got to take on more people because I'm not good enough. So I just kept on taking more people. And the beginning of this year, funny enough, just like you said earlier, I said, I'm only going to set one goal this year. And my goal was to be simple. Well, a lot of things happened last year that led to that, lots of mentor, coaching, but it was just one thing. And my one thing was, I'm going to give up drinking for January. And that kind of like just, it made everything work. So no drink. And up to now is that I'm never going to, well, I'm not never, but I'm just not drinking. I just have no desire. But with that came exercise, with that came clarity, with that, like just one thing, still working on sleep. I'm sleeping just 4 hours a day, and most nights 5. But long other story. But like just as you say, just one simple thing, and then you just work on that and be gentle with yourself. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you for giving us that one big change, which starts as a one micro change. Love that.
Exactly.
We'll take away. Terry's there listening. She's going to write it down so that I don't forget. Hold me to it as well. She's very good at that. So thank you so much, Colin. We're moving to our last bit, or our penultimate bit of this conversation, where we get to know you on a deeper level. I already feel like I know you because you're like really
Yeah.
open and you just talk very openly, and it's really it's refreshing, honestly. This one though, there's only one rule. I'll
Okay.
ask you a question, and obviously you haven't seen these questions before. You've got to say the first thing that comes to mind. That's it. That's
Okay. All
anyway.
right.
So I'll go and get my first question up for you. And so I mean, we just went on a tangent completely. I have not followed my script at all because I just
That
enjoying it.
that they are the best ones.
Okay, so okay, the first question is oh my God. Okay, yeah. Okay. When you're overwhelmed, what is the first small thing you do to reset yourself?
Breath work.
Okay, okay, what's that?
So I found this thing on YouTube. It was kind of like this yoga-y type teachers, and they do breath work. It's similar to something like Wim Hof. Have you heard of Wim Hof?
Yeah, yeah, the one he throws himself in cold water or something.
Yeah, so I don't do that. I just so it's quite simple. Takes about 20 minutes. So first is you do 30 deep breaths. Um Yeah, 30 deep breaths, and then you breathe out all the air, and then you hold your breath for a minute, and then you take a massive breath in, hold it, and then push it around your body, and then you hold that for 10 seconds, let go. Then you repeat it, but you do 30 deep breaths all the way into your stomach. Then you hold it for a minute and a half, and then so you breathe out, hold for a minute and a half, then you suck in all the air 10 seconds, and then you do it again, and you do it for 2 minutes. Now, I don't always manage the 2 minutes without breathing. Sometimes like you think like you're drowning, but you're not. But what that actually does, it resets my nervous system. So I
Mm,
realized that coffee, I love coffee, but it actually makes me very anxious. So it's this double-edged sword, which I like to do it. So I've cut it out. But then when I find myself overwhelmed, like today I had loads of meetings and I'm like, oh, can I do this and this and this? If I can find 20 minutes to go and do that breath work, and then at the end you get just this beautiful glow, your body's sort of like vibrating, and you just like, oh, and you got 20 minutes, and your head's a bit clearer, you've got all this oxygen in your body, feels amazing. And it's like a reset for me, and I've been doing it for a long time. When I find that I don't get to do it, I try and do it on a daily basis. That's aspirational. Doesn't matter if you don't do it every day. But when I find myself in this can't sit still, twitchy mode, then I go, oh, something's up, and I go and do that. And I've got a special chair, I go and sit and do it.
oh, well, and a special chair too. Wow,
Yeah.
I love that though. I love that. Okay, a book or a talk that genuinely changed how you think.
Tim Ferriss, 4 Hour Work Week.
4 Hour Work Week. That's a good one. That's a good.
Yeah. It wasn't about getting myself out of work. It was about giving myself permission, because
Mm,
I'd always followed the rules. I'd always followed what everyone else was saying, was always a good boy. And then I realized that there was this system outside of that. And it gave me permission to open that door and go and look and see what was right for me, not what everyone else wanted for me.
brilliant. Found you kind of like found yourself in that. I love that. One habit that helps you notice patterns in your own life.
I'd say it's a mix of journaling. I don't do it all the time, but meditation.
I
And
love
yeah,
Yeah, meditation, slowing down and meditation. That's powerful. The fourth one is if you are not doing vantage point and thinking work, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
I can't honestly think. I feel very blessed to be doing what I'm doing, and thinking that I don't get to do this makes me very sad, and my mind shuts down. So yeah,
Sorry,
I'd find
I didn't want to put you in that place.
no, 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 no. I'd find a way back to doing it, because I get so much pleasure out of speaking to people, opening up my mind and being curious about other people. I think I've found something that really works for me. So I'd find maybe do the same thing, but under
In a
some
different name.
other. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You found your thing. Okay, so the second last one, before we then close, is one thing you wish more founders would stop pretending about.
Uh, Everything is okay, and that they're smashing it every day.
Oh my God, LinkedIn.
Yeah, yeah. It's not the reality. We're all human. We all mess up. We all have doubts. We all, do the wrong things. Just be open and honest about it, because
Be
we're
yourself.
sending the wrong messages to other people, because it's the shiny, shiny version. And it's not that you have to live in a negative world, but we're all human. We all
Be
make
real.
mistakes. Sell
Mm,
the real story, not the one that you think looks good on a front of a magazine.
yeah, yeah, I really like that. And that's for everybody, like even like celebrities. I think it's good for the kids to know that it's okay. It's okay to be
Yeah.
human. And finally, your one big micro moment. I was going to say one big change for 2026 in one sentence. I would say, what's your one big micro moment for 2026?
Being kinder to myself.
Which you
Everything.
hope will lead to,
Sorry.
which you hope will lead to.
Everything, because again, as I said at the beginning, I'm my worst critic, and I believe I've been holding myself back and
Mm,
beating myself up, and everything and all those patterns that we've talked about all start from inside me, and it's just how I show up. I do this exercise. I'm now saying to myself, I love myself. I love myself in the mirror, 5 minutes every day, morning and night, and it's a game changer. Someone told me about it, and I'm doing it. Seems a bit weird and a bit woo woo. Honestly, it's so hard to do, to look at yourself and say that you love yourself, but amazing things happen from that. I can guarantee it.
Amazing things happen from that, Colin guarantees. And you know what? That's a really good way to bring this to a wrap. But before we go, just for everybody listening in the kitchen, and before we land this, Colin, where can everybody find you to continue this conversation? Please
Okay.
tell us.
LinkedIn is I think the best and probably only place. I have a YouTube channel, but LinkedIn, start a conversation, reach out to me, and we go from there. I don't have a website, don't have anything else. That was all noise for me. Please come and have a conversation. You could be a guest on my live. So please.
And I love that. Really genuine. Shows real self-awareness and a powerful message that everybody can write in their notebook, and hopefully it's an orange one because we're starting an orange theme. Colin and I agreed. So that's it from my kitchen. We have had our guest with us, Colin Parsons. What a breath of fresh air. And as we close this episode today, I just want to leave you with that thing. Look out for those micro moments, because that's where the magic happens. Thank you so much for joining us, Colin. And for everybody listening, do have a lovely day.
Thanks for having us, Yvonne. Take care.